Hi folks, Mark here. I just wanted to make this quick video because something just happened to me about an hour ago here in Thatcham where I live that's made me really angry. Well, it's made me angry, but it's also made me feel quite happy at the same time, which is odd, but I'll explain. So I just went for a little walk around the churchyard here in Thatcham, was coming through to the gates, and some people had gathered around and I wondered what was going on. So I went to see, and an elderly lady had had a fall. Her walker had hit the path or something, or a brick, and she'd taken a tumble. Now there were several very kind strangers to this lady who'd stopped to help her out. And I went over and offered my services, and they were helping. One of the people that was helping her was a gentleman, and I apologise if you're watching this video, but I didn't catch your name, so I'm very sorry. He lived in a little cottage just next to the churchyard. He'd gone inside and got her a pillow and a blanket, and we lifted her off the ground and put her onto this pillow because it's been raining heavily here for 2 days in Thatcham, so it's soaking wet. It's cold. It's about 9-10 degrees. So this lady had had a fall. She had high blood pressure. She'd hit her head. She'd grazed her knee. It wasn't too badly cut, but it was a graze. She was breathing slightly, I wouldn't say heavily, but her breathing was elevated. And she was shaking. She was clearly in shock. I thought at first she may be a little bit confused, but actually she wasn't. She was very lucid in the way she was talking to us. Now, one of the people who had stopped was on the phone to 999, and this is what really... I'll watch my language. This is what really annoyed me. The lady spent quite a long time, bearing in mind the elderly lady is on the floor, wet, cold floor. She'd spent some time on the phone and they'd asked her a battery of ridiculous questions because, you know, they've got a script in their little room and they have to go through all these questions, and this lady was a complete stranger to the lady who'd fallen, so it was difficult for her to answer some questions. Anyway, she answered all these questions, and then the person at the end of the phone, now this is 999, the emergency services, the person at the end of the phone says to the lady, "You'll have to wait 2 hours for an ambulance." This is an elderly lady. She had high blood pressure. She'd had a fall. She'd hit her head. She'd grazed her knee. She was shaking. Her breathing was elevated. It's been raining heavily for 2 days. It's cold. It's wet. And the ambulance, the emergency services who are supposed to, like, you know, do things to help people in emergencies are saying you'll have to wait for 2 hours. So they wanted this elderly lady who'd had a fall to sit on the cold, wet ground for 2 hours. Now, luckily, we managed to... actually, no, sorry. A very kind gentleman, and I have to say at this point, despite the disgust that I feel at the emergency services, lots of people kept stopping in cars and stopping as they were walking past, asking us to help. At that point, we sort of had the things under control. So if you live in Thatcham and you saw what we were doing, thank you so much for stopping. And thank you to all the people that were already there when I arrived, because they did a wonderful job in helping this lady. There was a young lady from the RSPCA charity shop just round the corner. But yeah, a man pulled over in a car. His name was Ryan, a very kind gentleman, very worried. And he said, "I'm literally driving past the the local hospital, so I can take the lady to the hospital." At which point we just thought, well, we've got to. We can't leave this person who's hurt herself and has high blood pressure and who's hit her head. You can't leave her sitting on a cold, wet floor. We had a blanket around her shoulders. She was shaking. She was in shock. We can't leave her on the floor. So what we did was, there was a gentleman looking after her who lived in one of the cottages. He went back into his home and brought out a low garden chair. So we picked her up, put her into the garden chair, and Ryan pulled his car in nice and close. And then we lifted the lady... we lifted the lady in the garden chair into the front seat of Ryan's car, at which point, you know, Ryan took her to the hospital. So thank you so much. I feel so, you know, you watch the news and all the news is negative and everybody's attacking each other and everyone hates each other. And this morning in Thatcham by the churchyard, today is, what is the date? It's the 21st of October. In Thatcham today, a bunch of strangers um, showed kindness and compassion. You know, kindness doesn't cost you anything, but a lack of kindness might cost somebody everything, right? So thank you to all the people in Thatcham where I live for being so kind and generous and for stopping. And to the 999 services that cover Thatcham and the local area, you are an absolute bloody disgrace. And if there's anybody watching this video who wants to attack me for saying that, because, you know, we're all supposed to worship the NHS because they're so wonderful and they never do anything wrong. The NHS is pretty wonderful. But these people, the 999 services covering Thatcham, you're an absolute disgrace. You wanted an elderly lady, you expected an elderly lady who had just had a fall, who hit her head, who has high blood pressure, who was shaking, who was cold and in shock. You wanted her, you expected her to sit on the floor for 2 hours while an ambulance came. And who knows if that ambulance would have shown up after 2 hours anyway. Because we know how it works. If somebody else had phoned, they probably would have been redirected. We could not leave a lady on the floor for 2 hours. Also, all of the people that stopped to help were just walking by or going to work or whatever. I don't know Ryan's situation, who pulled over in his car, but I'm sure Ryan probably has a busy day ahead of him. So the ambulance people wanted us to stop and stay with this lady for 2 hours. Now, I live very close to where the incident occurred. I would have happily stood there with the lady for 2 hours and made sure that she was safe and wasn't deteriorating before the ambulance came. But the point is, I or any of the people there shouldn't have had to do that. We didn't in the end because Ryan very kindly drove the lady to the hospital. But you're 999, you're the emergency services. You're supposed to look after people, and you're telling an elderly lady who's had a fall that she has to wait for 2 hours in the car, sitting on the cold, wet floor for a bloody ambulance. That's absolutely bloody disgraceful. Absolute disgrace. I know the National Health Service is overstretched, but really, seriously? You just sit on the floor, dear, for 2 hours and wait until we can bother to show up and help you. Jesus Christ. Anyway, as I said, that really pissed me off and it really made me feel, what are we doing? You know, is there any decency in the world? And then you have this group of people who all stopped and gave their time and lifted the lady and wrapped her in blankets and stayed with her until we could get her safely to hospital. So if you're one of those people who stopped and helped her, well done, brilliant, absolutely fantastic. I should apologise to the gentleman who lives in the cottage, because I didn't actually catch your name, sir. So I apologise for that. But if there's anyone watching this video who knows about the incident, because I might post a link on Facebook to Thatcham notice board. If anybody stopped, and if anybody stopped and offered to help, and we said, thank you, we've got it under control, thank you so much. Not just for helping that lady, but for restoring a little bit of faith in humanity. There are good people in the world. There are also some not so nice people. Some people literally saw us and just walked straight past. There was one guy, as we were lifting the lady onto the garden chair, there was one guy who literally squeezed past us to go through the gates to the churchyard, squeezed past us sideways. And as he walked past, he looked at us with a look of complete disdain on his face, as if to say, what you doing? You're in my way, get out the way. What you doing? So if you're that gentleman who squeezed past us to get through the gates to Thatcham churchyard when we were struggling to lift this lady off the floor, then F you. Go, you know, do one, son. Anyway, that's my little rant over. if you're working for 999 services and you're covering Thatcham, and you were the person that told us we had to wait 2 hours for an ambulance, I'm sure you're busy, I'm sure you're overworked, but that's disgraceful, disgusting behaviour. If you're one of the people that stopped to help this lady, and you're one of the people who stopped to offer help, but we said thank you, we've got it under control, thank you so much, because sometimes the world can be quite a dark, miserable place, but you've all restored a little bit of faith in my humanity. So anyway, thank you very much.